there's certain ads that have happened throughout the last few decades that a large population of people would all agree, oh, that was super funny or that was super memorable. And, I don't know if it made people buy the product or not, but do we have an issue with advertising just not being relevant from a creative perspective, that people are just like, I just don't want to see this stuff because it's boring and not done well? Is it a creative issue? Or is it just the data and the privacy? Like, I just don't want to be targeted however good the ads are. I just leave me alone. I don't want to be targeted.
Welcome to Contrary to Popular Opinion, a podcast hosted by Vuja Digital. In each episode, we bring you provocative topics and novel perspectives around leadership, business, and marketing that defy the norms because exponential growth demands unconventional thinking and visionary action. So open your mind and let's get into this week's episode.
Hi, I'm Kelly Maguire. I'm one of the co-founders at Vuja Digital. I'm excited to talk about our topics today.
And I am Todd Juneau, one of the other co-founders, Kelly's partner at Vuja Digital. All right, so Kelly, this is a topic you and I have kicked around since, I don't know, the 2000s. Personalization, consumer privacy, ad blocking, all those things that basically give us a business to run, and a relevant way to put ads in front of people about things they should care about. People don't seem to like. And you and I have one basic opinion on this, in that the internet is free because of advertising. Why would anybody want worse ads versus better ads that are tailored to them? That's what we'll jump off today, and we'll talk about that. So let's talk about ad personalization first. So we've heard it all, right? Oh, it's great. I love getting ads for things I want to buy. And we've heard that's the craziest and creepiest thing ever. Stop tracking me and leave me alone. Where do you sit on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because I think we'll get into, you started out by talking about, I always start with a certain assumption, which is advertising kind of has to exist for the reality that we know. And I think it's an interesting point of view when you think about it, in that you mentioned, we always say that the internet is free because of advertising. There's a reason we have this amazing repository and this entire universe of information at our fingertips that we don't pay anything for, which in and of itself, if you think about it, is kind of crazy. You pay for everything else in your life, and yet the internet is so valuable to us. And I think it's just taken for granted, or really not even thought about, that we don't pay for this amazing resource, but people don't put in the time and the energy and the effort that it takes for this thing to exist for free. People's time and energy and effort and skill set and all of that is valuable. And there's an exchange here, and we're exchanging, somebody's paying for it. It just so happens we got incredibly used to advertisers being the ones that paid for it. And we didn't think about it that way. So we take this thing for granted that we get it for free. And so I always operate from if we want the reality that we've gotten so used to, then advertising is sort of some people would call it a necessary evil. But that phrase in and of itself leads to kind of what my opinion with the personalization is it doesn't necessarily have to be an evil if it's done in what I think the altruistically perfect version of advertising is, which is not exploitative, which is not brands or companies tricking people into buying something or stealing their money or taking things away. The idea is that, again, in a perfect state, I'm not saying everyone operates in a perfect state, the companies that are doing the advertising, I don't know of a lot of companies that spun up and got created by saying, hey, I'm going to create something terrible and exploitative. Like, most things come from a place of, I want to build something that is useful and solves a problem and creates a need or helps someone or is novelty or something positive, right? Most people build things or do something from a positive place. And the role of advertising in a perfect state is to match whatever it is that exists that you're advertising with the person that it provides benefit to. It is meant to solve their problem or improve their life or give them joy or something of a positive nature. And if you operate from that place and not, hey, we're trying to trick people out of their money, then you start to be able to look at it as, if you personalize the advertising to understand, who is this valuable to? Who is this going to benefit? How am I meeting someone in a place and an environment that's good for them and giving them some kind of awareness? We all joke about, what we experience and what we bought from advertising, but how many things have you bought that you loved that you would have never known about if you didn't see a TV commercial or didn't see an ad for it? Like you would have continued going on with your life, never knowing that this thing existed and never having a chance to experience it. And so
So what
again,
you're saying is advertising works?
it shouldn't, it can if it's done right, right? And again, it's all about the people that are running it and how it's being done. And yes, there's bad actors that use it in a bad way and it creates this bad taste. But again, in its perfect state, the idea of ad personalization and using your data to know about you, to learn about what you would actually be interested in and would actually benefit you is an ideal state. If you operate from, I have to see ads in order to continue to get this thing that I want for free, I might as well see the best ads and the ones that are actually going to expose me to products and services that really will benefit me and bring that in.
Yeah, but Kelly, let's look at the bigger picture, right? Google, Apple, Meta, all the giants have gone out and said, "Nah, we're going to make that more difficult. We're going to protect your data and your privacy." What data? What privacy? Why does it matter? Right? Like if it's if my data is out there and that's going to help Land Rover, for example, advertise to me the new car that I want, that's a good thing, right? Or Patagonia wants to advertise this new flannel that I'm wearing, that's a good thing, right? But there is another set of the population out there that does not want their data picked up on by a browser or by a mobile device or by a brand. I honestly can't imagine in my head what that consumer really is trying to accomplish with their avoidance of using an ad blocker or using VPNs or using, incognito modes or whatever. All they're doing is just making their whole ad experience worse, in my opinion, because now they're going to get ads that have nothing to do with any of their browser or content consumption or scrolling or whatever it is that we can pick up on that. So people think that that's invasive, right? I don't want to go down a political rabbit hole here about, where party lines are drawn about this, but you've got California Consumer Protection Act, you've got GDPR, you have all these things, right, that are meant. Now the cookie deprecation is in full swing, right? At the end of 2024, Google says we're done with it in Chrome. So everybody's making it harder for us to do our jobs and for brands to be able to find a way to have a personalized experience with a consumer. I will say one thing I've noticed is every website I go to keeps saying accept cookies. So I'm not really sure how it's going to go away entirely, but people feel it's invasive, and I can't quite understand that. Why do you think people think tracking them is invasive?
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to what I said. There are bad actors. There are people that exploit it. There are things that go awry. I mean, I think back to the whole one of the examples when Facebook tried to use their beacon signals, and you would end up with people that were shopping for engagement rings or Christmas presents, and then their spouse or their significant others was getting served ads and giving away the surprise and all these things. And there's these bad use cases, and there are people. Again, I started out by saying, in a perfect scenario that's how things would work, and that's not how they do work. So I mean, I do think there needs to be rules and regulations and operations to it. But you said something else around it's going to exist. Again, the people that don't want these things, right? I would venture a guess that most of them are not going to start plunking down $9.99 a month for the internet or $59.99 a month for the internet. Like that's not going to change. So again, you operate from ads have to exist. So again, operating with some level of control. There's almost an element of ignorance was bliss when you just sort of operated with what you'd always known. Because even as a marketer, and I know this, and I don't want all my data necessarily out there, just because if I'm going to have the controls, sometimes I'm just going to go ahead and not share it. But I can't tell you how obnoxious it is for me to go on every website and every app and hit, I either have the choice of I can just accept the cookies, or I can go into manage them and which ones do I not want. And sometimes I'll bother just because I'm in it so much and it's there for me. But it was easier when I didn't have to make that choice. It just didn't matter to me. Like it existed. And to your point, I got better ads for it and the experience was in there. And so it's hard to find the right balance. I can understand the gut reaction that my data's mine and you shouldn't be watching me and it's this big brother thing. But that's when you're operating that someone's looking at you personally. Like we always talk about targeting for ads, and we're not saying I'm going to go find Todd Juneau and serve him an ad. It's I'm going to go find people who are into surfing, active lifestyles with a certain level of income, who live in a certain geography. And that group of people will most likely respond well to my product and might buy it. And so I'm going to find it. So it's cohort and it's being able to participate in what matters to you. And again, it's not down to this area. And I think people conflate this fear of, well, my devices are listening to me. And that's a whole nother debate I've gotten in with friends. I always joked around they didn't, but I am kind of
Oh,
on
you
the
know
side
they
that I
are.
actually
You
think they
know they
are
are. You
because
know
I've
they
had
are.
too many weird experiences myself with it. But again, it's the world we live in. Everyone clicks the terms of services, right? You give over everything to Facebook, you give everything over to Apple as part of going in, and that's the social exchange. I want what they have, and my currency that I'm giving, since it's not money, is my data and information. So
Well,
it is a
let me
weird balance.
let me ask you this. So there's two things. There's data privacy, and then there's people that don't, I don't know, they just don't like ads. How much of what do you think, or how much of your opinion about I just don't like ads is relative to people just don't think the advertising is good, right? There's certain ads that have happened throughout the last few decades that a large population of people would all agree, oh, that was super funny or that was super memorable. And I don't know if it made people buy the product or not, but do we have an issue with advertising just not being relevant from a creative perspective, that people are just like, I just don't want to see this stuff because it's boring and not done well? Is it a creative issue? Is it or is it, do you think it's just the data and the privacy? Like, I just don't want to be targeted, however good the ads are. I just leave me alone. I don't want to be targeted.
I think people just don't think about it, right? I think most people don't realize they have to have ads. I keep saying this over and over for the internet to be free. I think they think if they can get rid of all this, they actually get to have an internet without ads. Like, I think people are operating
People
on
do
this.
with
They
ad
can actually
blockers,
get rid
right?
of it.
Don't people with ad blockers?
I
So
mean, it's such a small percentage of people do that. But again, let's okay, you're going to take me down a rabbit hole from where I was at. I'll come back to it. But hypothetically, let's say everyone did go through the process of going through ad blockers and actually you had the population do it. Guess what? All of that wonderful content you enjoyed goes away because the people who are getting paid to do it now stop getting paid to do it and they're going to stop working on it. You're not going to have the same thing anymore. So the only reason it works is because such a small fraction do the ad blocking. Like, that can't be a thing. It cannot go away. You can right now, if you're willing to put the time and energy into it, you can personally change your experience with an ad blocker because you're such a small minority. If that actually took over at large scale, it would change the economics of the internet and people would not like the reality that they found themselves with. But going back to the other thing, as far as the good experience with the ads, we have really interesting examples of this on the good and the bad side, right? You have Super Bowl commercials. Those have gotten so good and so anticipated that people literally sit and watch them. I sit and watch them. Any other time of the year, I'm not watching commercials. I'm going and doing other things. I sit and watch them because I want to see the good commercials. People will look at good creative and good experiences and out of that. And you have the opposite side of that. You have that historical example of Punch the Monkey on Facebook, or all these annoying things where you're like, I can't stand seeing that anymore, or the weird dating profile things that would come up on Facebook that would come up and they all eventually got banned. So again, there is an experience of good and bad, but a good experience that's not exploitative and doesn't get in the way, I think people would accept it and go through it. But again, I honestly think it's a cognitive disconnect. I think people aren't understanding that they have to accept it. And if you have to accept it, that there is a positive way for it. And again, we are talking in perfect scenarios. Even if you regulate and do it, there are going to be people that don't operate from I genuinely want to connect my product or brand with the right person. There are people that says, I don't really care if this helps with the consumer's life. If they give me money and I'm ahead, that's great. And that's the problem, is you are kind of making some of these rules against a fringe portion of the bad actors in it, but you have to find the right way to do it. As an advertiser, I think it's our best interest to try and operate from a let's generate the best results, but from the people that it is intended to result. And long term, that's a greater foundation of knowledge and understanding of where you make that connection.
do you think that Google and Meta and any of the other big enterprises, Amazon, do you think that the ad formats are going to start to continue to evolve to where they are more integrated, almost more like what we called in the old days advertorial, like how Google's new ads are going to be displayed within a page, almost relative to the like generative AI. Do you think people are going to react more positively or negatively to ads that seem to be more ingrained within content and maybe things that we're trying to consume, watch, read. Because I have a feeling we're going to see that recycle again. That everything seems to come around, but that was a thing back in like the late 2000s, 2010, 12. That was a big thing about how we could disguise advertising within content. I wonder if we're headed back around to that cycle where that's going to happen again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gets weird when you really think about it, right? With augmented reality and virtual reality and that coming along, and that immediately gets you into that classic Minority Report example,
That's a
right?
whole
That
nother
level of
example, right? Like
personalization in real life
what
and
new
real
ad
time.
formats are
Yeah.
coming? What's happening with that? Like we're really when my Google or my Meta goggles, like what kind of ads am I going to see there?
Yeah. And again, it comes down to are you going down the road of exploitative and trying to manipulate, or are you going down the road of additive and informational and beneficial on that? I mean, we are consumers. At the end of the day, we are consumers. We are going to put our dollars somewhere. We're going to buy things. We're going to experience things. We're going to spend our money on things. The way that you discover the options available to you, what you have choices of spending your dollars is advertising and marketing, right? It is a knowledge exchange. It is letting you know this things exist. This is the benefits of it. This is why you should buy it. And people need that information to choose where their finite dollars are going to go and where they're going to spend and where they can get the best benefit out of it. Again, it's very altruistic in what it is, but if you break it down and think about it, that is the purpose of marketing, is informing someone something that they can make a decision with. We always talk about behavioral influence and trying to influence the people's behavior and what they're doing towards learning more, researching more, considering more, and ultimately buying more. But at the end of the day, people can only buy what they know about and what they learn about. And so trying to find the balance of using this great technology to have that communication, to have that information exchange and that knowledge base. And again, keeping in mind that it is the economic foundation of this technology that we're going through. If you do not supplement the economics of the internet or augmented reality or apps or whatever it is, people are going to get paid. So either you pay for it out of your pocket or someone augments what you don't have to pay and pays for it on your behalf. That's an advertiser. So now instead of exchanging your dollars, you're exchanging your attention and your time.
Yeah, people don't want to do that mainly because they don't want their attention and their time tracked.
You got to trade something though. Things don't come for free. Currency is currency, time, energy, money. So there's some exchange. People, the same way you're not going to your job for free if they stop paying you for it, you're not going to do it. Like people are writing content, making images, making videos to get paid. They're not doing it for the fun of it.
So then back to the problem, right? Is how does a brand today create great creative, right? Because you don't want to, I mean, you should try to create good advertising, in the creative, whether that's video or still advertising or whatever it's going to be. We still have to create good message, good marketing, good informational sharing of things. And we still have to put it out on all these different platforms, right? We got to put it out there. So if I'm a brand today and I'm starting up a new beverage company, how in the world am I going to think about cutting through clutter? Because if I can't track, if I can't find those cohorts you talked about, right? Like if I can't find 18 to 24-year-old outdoor into cars or whatever, some cohort like that, right? That I want to put it in front of because the data's not there. How are we going to help brands advertise? What do you think's when the cookie goes away on Chrome at the end of this year? What are we going to use?
Well, okay, so there's two parts, right? There's the reality of what I think is going to happen, and then there's how brands should approach it, right? So the reality is I still am not convinced that the cookie will completely go away. I think it's too foundational, it's too woven in. I think it'll change dramatically. I think it'll deprecate to a certain degree. I don't necessarily believe that it's totally going to go away. I think you will continue to have to opt in. You'll default in. Again, there will be people that are on the fringes. That first party cookie will still be in there. You'll have to get smarter about how to use it. It's not going to cover so much of the internet and so much of the users. There will be gaps that have to be filled in. But again, there's the unified IDs, there's your device IDs, your mobile IDs now. Granted that Apple doesn't give that away. You have your email addresses, you have your sign up. Like there is a whole data ecosystem that will fill these gaps, right? It will become more sophisticated. It will become more fragmented. That's going to be a big challenge for everyone to navigate and understand how to put different pieces together when you could just generally go out and get it with one or two providers. You might need a dozen different ones to really mash it all together and get in there. You're going to have to it's going to take a lot more time and energy.
That
Obviously,
might mean the advertising is going to get more expensive then, right? Because we all know that every layer of data we add, it adds to the CPM cost or what have you, and the platform cost. So now the advertiser's paying more.
yeah, I mean, in theory, if you're really doing things the way that they need to be done and using the tools, yeah, it probably will take more time and energy to fill in those gaps. There hopefully will be things that solve in. There's a lot of artificial intelligence and machine learnings that should be supplementative and should help these things. It's still going to take someone to kind of push them together and make sure that they're doing what they need to do. But the reality is there will be solutions. I don't think cookies will go away. There's all sorts of different data sources. I still think people will continue to exchange and trade their information for the free stuff that they get, just in different ways and maybe not by default or without their knowledge. I also think we've always found that the vast majority of people simply take the default option. Every platform has experienced this. When Facebook changed their rules, when Apple changed rules, most people, I don't know if you want to call it lazy or if you want to call it just uninterested or whatever it is, 80 to 90% of people just take the default option. So if the default option is just accept cookies and let me get to what I want to read, you're going to get most people that do that, right? Now, again, how long that data is last and how fragmented it gets is a whole different question. But there will be ways to solve for this to do it. It just, to your point, it may take a lot more time. Now, how brands approach it, I think they have to get a lot smarter about it. Again, you can continue. All right, let me back up. You saw this happen with Facebook, right? Facebook was incredible at using people's data 5 to 10 years ago. And there was a boom of direct to consumer brands that made unbelievable amounts of money selling through Facebook ads. And then Facebook got hauled up in front of Congress and they realized they were being pretty manipulative in what they were doing. There was a lot of shadiness, hence the bad actor comments before. And it sort of got pulled back and it went away a little bit. Now, Facebook has been very, very good at rebuilding this and coming back strong, and they are coming back strong. I don't think they will ever be quite what they were at their heyday, but they are making up a lot of that ground and getting smarter, and they're becoming more and more effective. TikTok's a whole nother thing. TikTok is putting incredible amounts of money. They leverage data like nobody's business. It's really crazy how that thing goes and the time spent on there. So again, you're gonna know what it is. So it comes down to a brand on knowing, starting out with the fundamentals. Why did I create this company? Why did I build this product? Like, what value do I have? And then really strategically breaking that down and having a team of people that can understand, who is it valuable for? What do we need to convey so that they understand and get the information that they need to know about and to properly consider it? And then how do I facilitate the transaction? And all media then comes back to transacting that, doing that at scale, making the right people see the right messaging and delivering them the right experience so that they can get to a positive end result. I traded my money for a product or a service, and my life is better as a result. I am happy with that. That is the perfect scenario that you'd always be aiming for, and then replicating that at scale as best you can, whether that's reaching people who are ready to buy and you can service now, or educating and nurturing future customers into here's where you need to get to have a benefit from my company, my service, my product, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think, do you remember years and years and years ago, you and I talked about, wouldn't it be great if we created a new browser that you went in and basically self-identified
Oh
in
yeah.
advance? And what
You're
if,
sharing the profiting of it, right? You benefit from raising your hand, saying what I'm interested, what you buy. Yeah, I mean there's about now again, I think we didn't pursue it because I think getting adoption and people to spend that kind of time is a long shot. Some people will. At scale, it's hard. But in a perfect scenario, yeah, you would have a person self-opting in saying, I want to buy this type of car and I'm interested in these types of clothes and these are my favorite brands. And so, yeah, I'm giving you permission, certain brands and certain things that I actually care to see about or that I like, giving you permission to talk to me. And in exchange, I'm going to get something for that, right? We just talked about the consumer's exchange, time, energy, money. Well, there's a brand exchange. Brand is getting something from me. You're getting my time and my attention. And so I should get a discount from you, or I should get a special offer from you, or I should get reward dollars from you. Like there is an exchange that can go the other way. And we talked about, again, if you thought someone would spend so much time and energy to go in and pick all their brands and go through that. You could. That would be more of a manual process.
Well,
We're
you
just
just
talking
said
about it.
most consumers are probably not going to go through that step, right? They're just going to do whatever the easy button is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, there is a search engine. DuckDuckGo exists. They don't track any of your information. It's no personalized ads. They've got like, I think, less than 1% of the search share. It's there. People could use it. They choose not to. They like Google, despite Google taking and spending all their data.
Have you used the browser?
I've not really used it. No, I use Google and I share my information.
I wonder, maybe we should go use it and see what kind of ads we get. All right. Well, so here's what we have discussed, and what I think we're trying to convey here is that the internet's free, people, because of advertising. So brands are going to continue to advertise. Companies like ours are going to continue to figure out how to put advertising in front of you. And we're going to do our best to use whatever data is available to make sure that the ads that we do put in front of you seem to be relevant for whatever signals we can mine that tell us you might be in market for some product or service, based on the data. And I think it's on us and the brands to do our best job with not only creating the best messaging and the best creative and the most entertaining and the most value delivering message we can, and then delivering it in the most relevant ways within what we have to work with, right? I mean, in our job, we simply have to work with Google, or we have to work with Meta, or we have to work with Amazon, or any number of the publishers that are out there. We have to work with them in order to put an ad message out there to try and influence a consumer to believe something or take some action. So I'm with you. It's not going to change. I think the data and the privacy regulations are going to continue to try and be constrained, just to sort of address the consumer public opinion. But I'm in your camp of, I don't think it's going to go away. I think we're going to have lots of data to target with. I think people are just going to have to accept that, and that the internet's free, and it's free because of that. And they might as well get, I might as well get a Land Rover ad instead of a diaper ad, because my kids are out of the house. So I don't need diaper ads, and I don't want diaper ads, but I would like to maybe buy a Land Rover. So Land Rover, you should advertise to me. That's what I've learned. I think in our business as an agency, we have a responsibility to help brands understand, what's the potential, what are the pitfalls. I think it's fun to see what people are trying to do out there and trying to get away from it. So there's a lot moving in this space. We're going to see a lot more change here at the end of this year with Chrome's supposed deprecation of the cookie. Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the way I see it, right? Is, there's short and long-term benefit considerations. You can be that bad actor, you can exploit the systems, and maybe you get some small short-term pops on things. But for a real brand that really wants to control their destiny, understanding why they're marketing, how they're marketing, putting thought behind it, setting up a foundation, building that up, collecting their own data, collecting their own learnings, doing their own experimentation, knowing about that, it's worth it in the long run. Again, the fragmentation of the space is about to get really difficult to navigate. It's not going to be easy to just throw up some face. I mean, how many RFPs have we looked at where we get an RFP asking for Facebook ads with a 15x return, and we're like, yeah, those days are gone. That's not the reality, right?
I was just going to ask you if you think the day of the 10 to 15x ROAS on Facebook is gone.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in a short-term miracle, the right sale, certain areas, but long-term averaging out longevity, I mean, it's just not the business reality on certain things in there. And so I think it's worth the effort. And look, I think ultimately consumers, they have voting mechanisms. You vote with your attention, you vote with your clicks, you vote with your dollars, what you buy, what you respond to. Every ad you get served has an ad choices. If you don't like what you're being served, you can click on it and say, don't show me this anymore. Nobody does it, but you can do it. What you click on, what you behave, what your action are, that data that people are tapping into, that reflects who you are. And the right people that are doing this the right way are optimizing into that, saying, look, this person, if I tell them the right story, is likely to respond to my messaging. Therefore, I'm going to try and put my ad in front of them over the next guy. And so you have some control over your own destiny as a consumer right now. The only thing you don't really control is, can I stop seeing ads altogether? And until you open your own wallet, the answer is going to be no in one way or another. Or if you get the answer you want on that, you're really not going to like the internet that you get anymore, because it's going to be a lot less interesting and fun, because a lot less time and energy is going to go into it.
I agree. We've said a lot. We'll wrap it up and I will talk to you next week about our next topic.
Thanks, everyone.